What's going on, people?
What's going on, guys? Welcome. Thank you all for tapping in with the Freedman Collective. This is episode 13. And our title for today's show is going to be Catch Your Own Wave, the false analogization of black and minority analogization of black and minority experiences. Sorry about that.
That's my fault. I apologize.
I'm your host, Ernest, and I'll let you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves as well.
I'm Darvell. I'm the usual suspect hiding out here just outside the city of Detroit, just making sure everybody's happy and healthy and passing along the good word as usual. So folks
are. I can hear me, man. My connection is horrible.
Oh, Stedman's with us.
I don't know. This is like technical difficulties or something because this is horrible.
Stedman is having a horrible connection right now, and it keeps repeating him. So he may be in and out. He might be down and out. Don't worry. He will get back with us. But we got a lot to cover. This is an early pop-up episode, not pop-up. It's our normal regular day, but it's an early episode, so we got to get into the thing today and talk about what's going on, right, Ernest?
Yeah, but before we do any of that, we want to do some housekeeping. So definitely want to encourage you guys to hit that like button, subscribe, and also, keep in mind that we always want to broadcast every other Tuesday. If we're not on Facebook Live, we'll always be on YouTube. So make sure you always check out our channel for new content and hit that subscriber bell so that way you get notifications when it's time. Darvell, like you said, we got a lot going on. I know we got a call line, which is being displayed at the bottom of the screen now.
Yep. So if you want to get in on the conversation we have today, please feel free to call in. Be patient if we don't get to you right away. If you're listening to the music, you're in the right place. Just chill. We're going to see you in there, and we're going to pull you in and make sure you get in on this. So let's hit it hard and quick because we got a schedule we all are so behind on because, these technical difficulties. Listen, being black is hard. That's what they said in Chicago. Our boys in Chicago, they got that site called Being Black is Hard. Yeah. And so that's what Stedman's experiencing right now. He's got some stuff that's going on that ain't working for him. So big thing, local beat. First thing we got to get into is this big old article that was taken out in the Free Press, y'all. Let me share this. This is ridiculous.
Let's pull that up.
Oh my goodness. So as I pull this up for y'all need to be, very mindful of one thing I want to share with you. This is a piece that was taken out in the Free Press, the Detroit Free Press. This article in question in particular in the Detroit Free Press is about General Motors, and I am an employee of General Motors. So I need to let everyone know that I work for GM. And these are my comments, only my own. They do not express the views, opinions, or otherwise any official commentary from General Motors or any of the organizations I'm affiliated with. They're expressly only my own. So with that being said, Jamie LaRue, hopefully I pronounced his last name correctly, shows here a piece that was put in a full page ad in the Free Press where several leaders of Black-owned media companies, including Byron Allen, we know Byron Allen's name from work with the American Descendants of Slavery movement, and Ice Cube as well from the same movement, are accusing General Motors CEO Mary Barra of being racist. And they described that based on her refusal to meet with them and the company not having a minimal amount, 5% to be exact, I believe, of African-American owned media as part of their advertising spend. So as we look at this piece, and you'll be able to find it on their site and access it for free on the Detroit Free Press website, they've been asking for a 1-hour Zoom meeting with her or she needs to resign, which this is quite a serious, very stark set of potential solutions you could go. I either want a meeting or you quit.
Right. I mean, I don't even know what leverage they got, but
I don't know. Byron Allen, well, he's got the Weather Channel. But and I'm again, Byron, he also went to the Supreme Court against Comcast, and that had to do more with the ability of having Comcast carry his network's channels. And so they weren't willing to even really, I guess, let him onto the network. And that's what the entire lawsuit was about, that pushed him all the way into the Supreme Court with that. So with the article goes on to say that Byron Allen, of course, is a native of Detroit. And this article is also co-signed by not only Byron and Ice Cube, but Ulysses Jr. Bridgman, who bought Ebony Media last year after bidding $14 million for it in U.S. bankruptcy court. And now that right there, that statement right there is kind of killer, right? He just bought one of our beloved publications for like what? How many decades have Ebony been around?
Probably like 30, 40.
Right. Yeah, it's been 30 years or something like that. I remember seeing it when I was a child. It's like he bought it in bankruptcy court. So I mean, that just tells you the state of our affairs in general. But it says, basically they put this ad in there to put pressure on Mary Barra, to put pressure on GM to meet with them over Zoom and to really seriously consider increasing their ad spend. They go on to say that the Black-owned media group of these organizations, including Byron Allen, Ice Cube, and the others, want GM to allocate at least 5% of its ad budget to Black-owned media companies. When Allen spoke with the Free Press last week, the ad itself, which I don't have a copy of that actual ad, says that less than 0.5% of General Motors media spend goes to companies owned by African Americans. And he's calling that horrendous, considering that African Americans make up approximately 14% of the population in America, and they spend billions buying GM vehicles, which is interesting because also we got to talk about General Motors. General Motors is headquartered in Detroit. I think it's very significant because General Motors is the one corporation, American automaker, that literally has its headquarters physically in city limits. Let me repeat that. Chrysler is in the suburbs out in Auburn Hills. Ford is in the suburbs over in Dearborn, but General Motors is in downtown Detroit. They own the largest. Well, I don't know if they own it now, because I know they sold it and then they started leasing out the part that they use. I don't know what the deal is right now. Please excuse me with that. But General Motors is the one automaker that's in the blackest city in America. So he didn't even try to go that far with this article when they went in on this. But they said, hey, you're not spending any money. Basically, he said that, he could recommend up to 14% of their ad spend be with African-American or Black-owned media companies, but they're not even trying to do that. Even though that would be economic parity, they're just asking for
0.5.
Yeah, more than 0.5. I think that he said that I think they gave a certain percentage somewhere. They're just asking for inclusion. They went on to say that, the guys who came together to put this ad out knew each other. And this is how Allen substantiates the status quo position he makes. He says that, if you're saying that what you're doing right now, General Motors, is okay, then that's wrong, and that is racism. And he forces that as racism. And so if you, and I quote, if you get to the table and you lean in to effectual change, then you're showing the world who you really are. This is an opportunity. The numbers will never lie. You're either doing business with Black-owned media, or you're not in a fair and equitable, way. Of course, General Motors responded to these allegations very quickly. I even seen an email internally that day, which I can't talk to, but they did note back to an email to, I believe, to the Free Press, that we have increased our planned spending with both diverse owned and diverse dedicated media across our family of brands. This also comes, unfortunately, in the wake of GM had, and I'm going to paraphrase, or Cadillac, maybe specifically, I got to double check the role she had. We had a Black leadership position that was filled by a woman, or who was responsible for like diversity marketing or Black targeted marketing, something to that effect. And she recently left and with the Hallmark. And so people have been talking internally here and there, and I've seen things or discussions about questions around whether or not there's a lot of representation going out. You see that on the internet and see people talking about it around town. So, of course, Ford and Stellantis is actually FCA now, or FCA has become Stellantis. That's the new name of the company since these mergers. They basically have said, they decline to comment on their spending until they learn where they are. And They just keep going in on GM. And this is GM's had a very strong cultural response to the different events over the past year. The article goes in to explain GM's view on cultural change. I know personally, I haven't been in a company, they're working very strongly towards this. And they also made 2020 Diversity Inc. top 50 list. So, I can't speak too deeply about, the position of executives and their opinion of the Byron Allen proposal or the Black media proposal. But the concern that it brings to us today here in this show has to do specifically with, we're talking about waves, right? That's the title of our show today, right? Waves.
Yep.
It really has to do with this idea that, people are going to be quick to think that we're pulling a race card on this one. And I'm going to say it's not we, because I'm not part of this media group. I'm not in this bucket. I don't even know really what the facts of the matter are. So we have to be careful about when we see others pulling this card of racism, pulling the Black card, pulling a exclusion card to try to get leverage against companies to do business with them. Again, I don't know the data, right?
Yeah, no, and that's like you said, that's definitely something we want to be wary of for sure. Like if you go back to Byron Allen's quote that he had in this article, he laid out something that I said that I think is a fact. The numbers don't lie. So at the end of the day, if we have less than 0.5% representation in receiving any of the media budget that this large corporation owns, then that is a significant issue, because it's showing you that is a part of the reason why Ebony magazine could go bankrupt and be purchased for $14 million by an NBA player. And so he has a point there, but like you said, it's a fine line that he's walking, because he's trying to pull the race card, and at the same time it is for his own personal benefit or gain. It's not necessarily for local businesses in Detroit to specifically get greater representation, just for the Black media companies that already exist. So it's a fine line being walked here. I feel like personally, all corporations, it's not just GM. If you can find data in numbers where either the hiring manager representation is less than 2% or 1%, and then you got 96% white or X, Y, and Z, you're looking at these data figures and you see that we have 90% white hiring managers, and it's resulted in these departments that we have in corporate America having less than 5% representation. Although we're 14% of the population, us having that small amount of representation, and when you really think about that, it's not necessarily just only American descendants of freedmen. So any other groups that identify as Black would also make up that status quo, that quota. And so, to the purpose of this show, like we said, the analogization of
you can say that the false equivalization too, the false equivalency.
Let me say the false equivalency there.
Yeah.
See, because of the false equivalency that's being played out between our experience and minority experiences, you guys will see that if you looked at our data, it's a lot of things messed up with our community due to the results that we've seen across America. So it's like if we, have these high disparities in schooling, of course it's going to translate over into our performance in corporate America or obtaining careers. And if that education, failure is linked to extreme poverty and other influences that can affect our community, you got to take that all into, all of that into the full picture, So I say all of that to say, we're going to get into some things tonight, but just my initial comments on that article is, it's a fine line being walked.
It definitely is. And, at the end of the day, when we talk about including Black businesses at the table and giving them a cut of the business, what really has to happen is those Black businesses have to be hiring people basically from the hood. And I say it that way because that's where the bulk of the people that we are fighting for are really at. And so in order to actually uplift the Black community through inclusion of Black businesses, you have to be working to pull more people from the lower portion of our social economic basket up. And that doesn't mean just getting Byron Allen more money. It doesn't mean just getting few of his employees more money. We have to trickle. I hate to say trickle down economics, but we have to build companies that hire more people who need opportunities, not just people who are in positions that could get opportunities at even white-owned places, right? So we gotta definitely give those opportunities lower down there. And like you say, we got to tell the difference between a bona fide claim versus a wave riding, right? And that's part of the theme of the show, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely like some type of efficient pipeline. You know, a lot of companies take diversity efforts and things like that and try to make a change to their culture, but ultimately nothing really changes in any of the corporate America cultures because those cultures are, I would say, shaped in a white image. And you know, to go a step further, you know, in order to give true Black representation, they would not have to be afraid of that culture changing, and they are. So you know, that's a part of the issue.
So we're gonna go ahead and keep it moving. I do encourage people to read this article if you haven't already. It's very insightful in terms of things that General Motors has been doing. Like they mentioned here, GM. I remember this day exactly when we went silent for 8 minutes and 46 seconds on Juneteenth to support in support and observation of Black Lives Matter and the Black community, as well as Mary Barr, not only penning 2 letters to us regarding what was going on in the country, but also going down to Detroit City Hall and engaging in commitments to the community and talking about these issues with the other big 3 automakers. So, you know, that's why I have to hop in here and kind of say, you know, we've seen Byron and the team doing the work in some other ways, so we got to double check on that, right? Yeah. So anyway, we do have a special guest we're going to bring in to our call today, into our thing here. So I want to add our special guest. So we got to move on to the next thing, though.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, before we even transition, you know, with the 8 minutes and 46 seconds, a lot of corporations did that. Even our CEO, the company I worked at, they penned us letters. They promised to fight against systemic racism. And the only way you could fight against that is if you're talking about increasing our representation from 0.5% up to 10%. Not that you have to give Byron Allen anything, but you need to do that, though. You know,
no. So I can't argue with that because that's what matters, right? At the end of the day, it's not symbolism, right?
So shifting into our next topic, you know, that 8 minutes and 46 seconds was for the killing of a Black man in America unjustly. And, you know, even if he was committing what they called a crime, it was due to his situation and his reality. And we all know who this man is. He, you know, his death in that video recording that was released sparked wide protest across the country, but it wasn't just him. It was a lot of energy already building from years of these killings, from Tarir Rice to all of the other folks. And so our next topic is, of course, to discuss the George Floyd trial that's currently being played. Well, not the Derek Chauvin trial for George Floyd.
It's Caller, Mr. Caller, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Stedman, man. Look, I had to call into my own show, dude. I've had to try to find a way to wiggle around here.
There you go.
I mean, this is ridiculous, man. I got new internet, right? I got new internet. The internet doesn't work all of a sudden today. Been using it for 2 weeks. I call Ernest on Discord. We talked for forever. I've been calling my family on Duo. Been talking to them, video chats, all that for 2 weeks. No problem. My phone data don't even work because, you know, normally I use my phone data. Yeah. My phone data doesn't even work. Man. I got the router right next to my laptop. So my wife is convinced that they're jamming my signal. I won't go that far because I don't think I'm that important.
But look, my internet is getting throttled. I've been noticing lately it's been throttled a little bit. So I got to dig into that, make sure it's not my router or my modems and shit. But hey, man, you know, that's how it goes. Everybody uses
collective, man.
Free. That's what it is. So, hey, let's get into this, though. We got Stedman on the line. He's our first caller. He's going to hang with us tight. If you want to call in, you can still call in. I'm going to be looking for you to join the line. People, let's get in on this conversation. If you got a comment about the GM situation with Byron Allen and that big front page ad or that big ad, call in. The number's below. Let's get it. So real quick, we're just going to touch on where we are with the George Floyd trial. I listened to a little bit of it today. It was, you know, as expected, the testimony didn't miss a beat. You had of course, your objections and stuff. So I didn't catch anything weird, but I mean, I don't know. Which is you here, Ernest?
You know, I would say same vibe. You know, I think it was the standard proceedings as we always see. I think the thing I'm waiting for is the jury's verdict, as well as, you know, the court sentencing, if there's any, you know. And so, I know one thing I wanted to mention is like the American court system is, I know it's hard to judge and gain justice because it is just based on human opinion. But at the end of the day, like, it has to be a better system that could be set up that really, drives home to get the truth and things like that without, going through these motions. Like, let's just say if George Floyd's defense is shitty, he could lose, we could lose justice just because, something that's already on camera and proven. So, that ain't right to me. But yeah, Stan, what you think?
Well, see, kind of what you're saying. Like, it's not even his defense. It's the prosecutor. So it's the county prosecutor or whoever is doing this. So if the county prosecutor is an asshole or, because historically relationships between prosecutors, district attorneys, and the police is so tight that they don't really want to prosecute police.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because then the police officers don't do their work investigating crimes. You can't solve crimes. You don't win re-election.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, honestly, there's so much pressure on this trial.
Yeah.
And so much global attention. I don't really know where it's going to fall. I'd like to be just cynical and say it's probably going to be like a hung jury or something.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much attention being given to this trial that I don't know how it's going to fall. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, yeah, it's listening to the defense, Chauvin's defense, I only got to really hear when he was talking to the guy who was the MMA fighter. I heard a bit of that exchange. Yep. And so, he's just really trying to create a scenario where regular human emotion is like abnormal. So did you respond this way when an officer put his hand on you? Did you approach? Whatever. And the guy's like, yeah. I mean, he was like, I saw him, he was fighting for his life. And then they had a little sidebar where they muted all the mics and stuff. And I guess they weren't supposed to say that kind of thing in front of the jury. So, I mean, this is one of those instances where I'm really stumped about how it's going to play out legitimately with the way this country operates. I wouldn't be surprised if the officer gets off, but at the same time, with the amount of pressure you have, I kind of don't know how it's going to play out.
This might be the first one, I mean, where they actually sentence him to some years in prison. But, these cats be getting all type of defense money coming in from white conservatives across the country.
Oh, word.
Don't even know him, full lawyer, $1 million lawyer, all of that, police union standing in solidarity. I think in New York, they turned their back against the mayor for just trying to do better in their city, so it's I don't know, like you said, it's a interesting system we got.
Yeah, so they do know the volatility they're dealing with, though, right? Because it's such a clear violation, no matter how you chop it up, whether it be he directly causes death or he aggravated conditions he already had into causing a death that otherwise would have been preventable, right? Because even at the end of the day, if we start talking about he had, because I remember hearing a segment where he said, he had hypertension, he had been on methamphetamine, he had done X, Y, and Z. So all these aggravating factors have been thrown at him in order to kind of kill him before the cop even arrived, right? That's what they were trying to do. And so his death was not the cop's fault. Well, guess what? That man would have more than likely not fell over in the middle of the street on that day, given whatever you claim he had in his system. He only fell over and passed because of that officer. And that officer can never defend his actions. And that's where it becomes, like you say, officers may not investigate crimes and do their job properly if they feel like, anytime they do something that they think is right, they won't be backed up they won't be protected. And all of a sudden, the whole system unravels, kind of, right?
He gonna get on that stand and say, I was doing what I was trained to do. And that's the number one defense they go with. But at the same time, like you said, his life wouldn't have been lost no other way. That's the same way, like, if somebody was running from the cops and you shoot him in the back, you know what I'm saying? You didn't, tell him to freeze or anything before you shot. Mm-hmm. Those same cops have beaten these type of cases, and they were in fear of their life, even though, somebody was 10 feet from you running the opposite direction, Shit.
And see, the thing about it, it isn't even just that they've beaten these cases, because they have. But in instances, all over, when these instances happen where they are blatantly murdering people. They're protected by the power structure. Look at Laquan McDonald in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what he get shot like 16 times?
Mm-hmm.
2 different mayors hid the footage.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Rahm Emanuel, right?
And so, right. I mean, even there's something I want to bring up when we get up to the next segment, so I don't really want to mention it now. But even it relates to, dynamics of law enforcement and the power structure. Because like we always talk about, the police are allowed to do this because they protect property, they protect the assets, the wealth, the value of the elite. That's why. You see what I'm saying? That's why the stuff at the Capitol was such a problem for them. It's not because they were really doing what they were doing. It's because they were attacking them and their institutions, what they believe in. You see what I'm saying? The people at the Capitol were rebuking the elite, right? And not in sincerity. It wasn't a rebuke in that they wanted a fundamental change of the system. It was a rebuke in that they didn't want to accept the results. Yeah. Whether they were, whatever the results were.
It was cops out there. Yeah, it was cops out there. Yeah.
So
fighting the cops. Yeah.
We gotta keep pushing here. We're a few minutes over from where we wanted to be, but I mean, I think we all know we got to keep an eye on this trial. So I do encourage people, listen to actual testimony, tune into the live feeds on YouTube. A couple different news stations have them on YouTube every day, and get your own perspective and call into the show if you got anything on it today or in our next show in 2 weeks from now, right? So we do have a bigger thing we got to get into, though, right? We started off talking earlier, Ernest, about this idea of we started off talking about getting
false
on your own wave. Was that
false equivalencies?
False equivalencies, but we're talking about the wave. And I brought our buddy Adolph J. Rocky in here. He popped up. I don't know if he's got his audio on yet. Whoa, what's up, sir?
Hey, what's going on? What's happening,
what's
man?
Going on, man?
I'm coming live from Nairobi, man. What's up?
Nairobi, straight from down the way, man.
Hey.
So listen, Stedman, you got to square this up. And before you square this up about this Asian violence, violence against Asian Americans right now, and the media's role in this right now, and what they're doing in terms of false equivalency against Black people and our struggles and what we've experienced, I want to just make sure anybody who's watching knows this is not an attempt to compare suffering or try to play the oppression Olympics. Don't use those terminologies with us, and don't try to box us into that type of mentality. What we're talking about today has to do with the media's role in basically misleading people and also using themselves as willful tools of white supremacy, and how a lot of Asian people are hip to this. And so that's what we're going to get into, right, Stedman?
Right.
So I'm going to pull up that article, that 28-year-old and Compton, just as a backdrop, and you can kind of talk until I pull that up.
Okay, so essentially, we've seen in America, and I don't even say especially, but really around the world, you've seen an increase in, they've been calling it anti-Asian Pacific Islander violence, AAPI violence. And a lot of that is the root causes are believed to be a result of the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic. A lot of the blame is laid at the feet of Donald Trump for calling it the China virus or the Wuhan virus, or even at a rally, he called it the Kung. He was repeating a phrase, called it the Kung flu. Okay.
Oh, goodness.
And so there's an attempt to kind of draw a direct parallel between that type of rhetoric and an increase in attacks of Asian people. And, on one hand, this needs to be addressed in a good faith way.
Yep.
On another hand, what this is also doing is taking away, and when I say this, I'm trying to say this as I don't want to say charitably, but I want to be as clear as I can be. What it does is it takes away from the specific moment that is happening as it relates to Black Americans and the struggle against white supremacy, or the system of white dominance, or whatever you want to call it. And so when I say that, what I mean is this: historically, Black Americans, descendants of freedmen, descendants of chattel slavery, in America have struggled against the system of white supremacy in this country. It's the foundation that this country was built on, this idea, this myth that white people were superior, and so they were able to do whatever they wanted to do. Everything they did was justified. When you're looking at like westward expansion, they called it manifest destiny, meaning, you know, they said, you know, God wanted us to have this because he put it in front of us. You know, that's manifest destiny in a nutshell. And so, as we talk about a lot on this show, we look at the dynamics of immigration and the impact immigration has had on the black community, on the native-born black community. So you're looking at even immigration from the Caribbean, from Africa. So specifically here, we're talking about Asian immigration, but immigration as a whole.
Yeah, white immigration.
And what ends up happening, and so what ends up happening is there are dynamics at play within the black community that are, in my opinion, and I think we all share, that have been amplified in an attempt to create a media blackout on the struggle for black equality and freedom. By showing blacks as perpetrators of anti-Asian violence or anti-Asian racism disproportionately. And by the media. And so,
also, just like you said, they distract. No, I was just going to, and also basically in terms of that spectrum of basically distractions to pull people's minds away from the fight against white supremacy to looking at, let's say, intergender issues between black men and women. That's the big one I see in my spaces, is that, you know, men ain't this and women doing this. Like, we got this whole thing going on now with who's my dude? Is it Derek? Yeah, so we're not getting into that, but there's a lot of distractions, and now this Asian thing, again, no one's trying to say that this isn't a real thing, but to try to lump it into our situation as well. Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, and so like when you look at the situation here with this woman, her name is Sia
Marie.
Sia Marie Jiang. Okay. And if my internet is, so I can't even really see what you guys are looking at. Hopefully that you got the picture of her up.
Yeah, I have the article up. Let me pull up her picture here.
It's down at the bottom. Yeah.
She comes from a mixed race family. I believe it's like Laotian and black and like Hawaiian or Pacific Islander. Okay, and she was murdered in Compton, 28 years old, mother of one. And as of now, the police have not released any information about how she was, why she was killed. They know she was shot. Why she was killed. One of the interesting parts about this is that she doesn't live in Compton, so Compton is not really the kind of place you go to if you're not from there. And so the police haven't really released any information about what a motive might be, what the perpetrator looks like, and so what happens is she's got, I saw a press conference. Her aunt is black, and she was giving a press conference. They hired an Asian lawyer, and then there's another black, like, community activist who was standing at the podium.
It's that Kamala
Asian lawyer.
What the family is saying they want to do. And the family is saying they want to have this investigated to see if it's an anti-Asian hate crime. And so what you see is a woman who would, under any other circumstances, would just be considered a black woman, because you want to try to continue to push this idea that black people are somehow uniquely violent against Asian people in this instance. And by instance, I mean this period in time as a result of the virus. You allow this be the narrative that you have, that this Asian woman, who is in fact by the American standard black, like one drop, she is a black person. You allow this standard now that she's a multiracial person when it benefits the white supremacist system. And now we have to investigate whether this is an Asian hate crime, And let me be clear. It's a tragedy what happened to her. Patient release. And so to try to make it as though this is even possible without any greater evidence, knowing that California is a fairly multicultural state, especially Southern California, there's a lot of mixing, of different people. that this is all of a sudden going to be a racially motivated crime.
It's a beautiful woman, and if
Yeah.
you look at her, you do not get struck with any. Like, again, we're not trying to take away from her heritage or her ethnic makeup or anything, but we're just trying to shoot the straight facts that the reality is this situation in particular had a ramp that was exploitable by the media and those who knew that there was a train available to put this on that would actually favor a totally alternative narrative than the reality of what was going on.
So that's that Kabbalah effect. And so like most of us, like I told a lot of people, I said, if we wanted to look at what's in our blood, we would find that there's multiple ethnicities and other races that we could easily claim, so when we checking in these boxes and it says Black or African American, should we check in multiple? Because how they played out this situation, not only the simple fact that she is a Black person and the Blacks dying in the news isn't something entirely new, but because of the energy and the things of what's going on lately, they tied this into a different narrative, which it shouldn't have been the case. Now, justice still needs to be served. The persons who did this should go to jail. That's just simple American justice. But at the end of the day, like what we see in the media do is something where we're talking about riding waves and mixing up these experiences. That's exactly what they're doing, and it's shameful,
Man, yeah, I mean, yeah, and I guess there's a website called blackgirltragic.com. I never knew about it. Probably got all the names. I hate this. I hate to hear it. I hate to see it. Man, touches my heart. But just to kind of bring this home in terms of the context of what we're facing in terms of, false equivalency and these things, we do have a quick video we're going to show about this that was kind of a drop from a recording from, what was it from, Ernest? It was from like
TikTok. So
TikTok.
just a college guy that's of the Asian community commenting on the privileges that they have thanks to white supremacy, and let's go ahead.
If you're desi and you have conservative beliefs when it comes to racial issues, you have been fooled by the model minority myth. Let me break that down for you. In 1965, the United States government put into place a new immigration act that only allowed Asian immigrants in that had very high education levels or special skills. And because of this, we were predetermined to be successful. And when we were, the media painted us as model minorities, as good, law-abiding citizens that were the opposite of Black people. Remember, Black Americans were not introduced to the society on the basis of education. They were brought in as slaves, as property. And then they were lynched, and then they were segregated against and forced into ghettos and not given jobs, and they were mass incarcerated against, and then they were criminalized for petty drug crimes, and so much more. And these issues generationally affect their communities because it's part of the system. So yes, South Asians face ignorance, casual racism, hate crimes, but we have never in American history been systematically dehumanized and oppressed in the way that Black people have. You gotta understand that white America intentionally gave us partial access to socioeconomic white privilege so they could say, oh look, the Asians did it, so anybody can do it too, and therefore deny the existence of structural racism against Black people. It's a lie. This country used us as a tool to divide people of color and perpetuate white supremacy. Wake up!
Hard.
brought it right in, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's
an ally. That's an ally, right?
Yeah, that's an ally.
Right.
Yeah, for real. To tell the truth like that.
And see, this is the thing that we have touched on a lot, and it's always a touchy subject when Black people are trying to give a voice to the oppression that they feel. They call it lived experience. But like you said, when you allow immigration to happen as it happens in America, 9 times out of 10, you allow people from countries to come in who have means. Even like when Trump was in office, he had that not no quarter, but it was a law where if you wanted to get a green card, you had to show that you would not be using government benefits. It was called, I can't remember what it was called now. But that alone is gonna completely remove a majority of immigrants from these countries who want to come here. Whereas here, if you're a Black person and you're on welfare or some kind of social benefit, you just live here. They can't kick you out. They can't restrict your movement in this country physically. Now they can with institutional roadblocks, college, employment, things like that. But you live here already. They can't send you anywhere else. They send you to prison, but they can't send you out of this country legally. You see what I'm saying? And
right.
So what it always looks like is that Black people can't cut the mustard, right? We don't, like you said, Asian people are the most successful demographic. And I just want to ask you guys, because I looked this up a while ago, and most people don't know. Can any of you guys name which Asian ethnic group is the most successful in America? If you can guess.
Say
Japanese.
American?
I'll go with Japanese. Yeah.
Japanese,
it was either
Chinese,
Japanese or Korean for me. Yeah, I'm going with Japanese.
I would say Chinese or Japanese.
I'm gonna throw it at the Chinese. You got Step.
I'm gonna tell you who it is. It's Indians. You know
Oh
why?
yeah, right.
They speak English. It's Indians. They already speak English.
You talking about like the Brahmin types, right? Like the Kamala folks. That's what
right.
You're talking about. Okay.
Well, they come from India.
Right. Yeah, that's still Asia.
But see, this is the thing. They don't even necessarily need to be Brahmin type, because what India understands now is that the class system can be fluid as long as there's money involved. Yeah. And what they do, even in poor villages, is they educate their kids. They have an investment in education. They go to school. Some Indian kids go to school 4 hours before school in the morning. They go to school. Then they go to school for 8 hours. Then they go to school for 4 hours after school. So they have looked at their pathway to freedom is education. So they get the education. They come to America. They get jobs working in engineering, computers, Silicon Valley. There's so many Indians in Silicon Valley. Me and my wife went to San Francisco like 2 or 3 years ago. And we got an Uber, and the Uber driver was telling us they had Indian radio stations, Indian TV stations, and he was just showing us, he listened to the Indian radio station. It was just a regular white guy from the Bay Area.
Your words
wait,
Stephen, your words so true. Your words so true that they only make up however much percentage while we're still at 14%. And if you look at the IT industry, they make up damn near 20 to 30% of all corporate America. So that representation,
right,
is there.
So let me crack into this. Let's crack into this real quick. I brought up the 2019 hate crime statistics, Ernest. What's significant about this chart?
Well, there's a lot of things that's significant. I mean, if you're going to count the amount of anti-Asian hate crime as an increase compared to what's been going on in 2019, then you might as well include what's going on with multiple races, because they're just slightly behind that. But when you really look at it, you would see that anti-Black or African-American hate crimes are significantly higher than all other racial groups. And that's because of the history. It's because of what that ally just said in the previous video, that all of these other groups are merely distractions. The fact that we have all of these different categories are meant to be distractions to what occurred after the civil rights. This is why we have so many different categories on this chart, because they did what Martin Luther King and those folks thought was going to work, but then they realized, look at all of these buckets you guys are creating and leaving Black America still in the same shoes of yesteryear. So
look, we double. Listen, we're more than twice the anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic area.
Yeah, but when you're thinking about it, like the way the media marginalizes a Black life, it all makes sense. So, if we look at these numbers, we always known that Blacks will experience the most hate in this country. And of course, this is just what's reported. So it's not necessarily, a true picture, because everybody's not reporting everything. Right. And to most of us, there is casual racism that we know of. We just not going to run and say, I'm calling the FBI because you said that. That's not how we doing.
So,
a good movie.
Another.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Adolf.
A good movie that recently came out on Netflix is called the White Tiger, man. And jumping back on the whole, model minority, the whole caste structure that's inside of India. The whole movie takes place in India, and it's about how this young kid, from the slums of India or what have you, he actually maneuvers himself. Here's the reason why it's called White Tiger, because White Tiger is born like once every generation, and he was exceptionally well in academics, but because he came from a lower caste system, he wasn't able to fully actualize his talents, and so he ends up actually becoming a driver to a wealthy family that came from his village, and through the course of being his driver, and the driver's employer, he was driving for the big guy son or what have you, which was a wealthy Indian, and his wife was from America, and so on and so forth. And anyways, it's a definitely good movie. It's on Netflix. Go check it out. But it really deals with the whole dynamic of caste system inside of India. And the Indian system. I was funny because when I was watching this, it really made me understand why Indians are so preferred, because they basically are the white people of immigrants, you know what I'm saying, or Asians. So you know what I'm saying, they carry all the same sort of pathos, you know what I'm saying, of white supremacy, and they blend so well. Yeah, exactly.
The whiter you are, the closer to whiteness, the more pure you are. That's it's
we're going to
and the thing I wanted to, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
So the other part of this is the exploitation of a system called the H-1B visa system. Mm-hmm. So H-1B visas are visas that you that are like given to people who have a certain skill or some kind of desirable skill, and a company will sponsor them to come here and get a visa to work and live. And now how that's used in Silicon Valley too is this. So I mean, for us who live in Michigan, we live in Detroit or Metro Detroit. So it's about kind of unfathomable. And when I go travel, I like to ask a lot of questions. So again, I asked the Uber driver, I said, how much is an apartment out here? And I asked like the guy we were staying at the hotel. I asked the guy who worked in the hotel. He was an Indian guy. His family owned this Best Western. He said a 1-bedroom apartment or a studio, and this was in 2018 or 17, was $3,500 a month.
Where?
Right? That's how much is
Silicon Valley.
in San Francisco.
Okay. Oh, okay.
In San Francisco, it was $3,500 a month for like studio 1-bedroom apartment. And so what happens with this H-1B visa is this. You get somebody from India who comes from a really bad situation, but they have this education. You bring them here, sponsor them with their visa, and you pay them to do a job. Now, what they do and how they exploit them is they pay them significantly less money than what their skills should demand, right? But the Indian person is so glad to be able to come to America, they accept. Now, over a period of time, years, this person understands their skill, they understand their how integral they play a role in the company or the product they're producing or whatever, and they might go ask for a raise. And so what the company will say is, look, if you want a raise, we'll just terminate your visa and send you back and go get somebody else. So they create a system where they use this tool of H-1B visas to exploit these people's skill and labor.
That's actually, real act. Now, I was going to say, I know some companies that have like the temp agencies, and they do hire those folks, but they paying the portion of the H-1B visa. So, that's
okay. That's the other cost. That's the hidden salary.
Yeah. It's like I'm paying a portion of this. Yep.
So I don't want to cut that.
I mean, that's really how a lot of them get in. A lot of them get in that way, and eventually, if they are lucky enough, they'll go on ahead and get another a gig, and then they'll can apply for their citizenship or green card, and boom, they're here.
Yeah. No. And I would say just to keep the conversation going, guys. Like, I know we got to move on into our next topic, but when we're thinking about all of this anti-Asian hate that's in the media today, and when we're looking at the true things that are going on over there in those countries where they have these racial caste systems, and it's true black racism going on over there. Even in China, we seen during the COVID what happened with the African brothers and sisters there and the treatment they received. So it's real insensitive of the media. It's real sinister for them to try to create these false equivalencies of hating America and of the least to say that we are, to suggest black people are the ones who are inflicting this type of hate against other groups, or at least saying we play a part in that is
or that we somehow own some
Yeah.
type of some responsibility to try to fix it.
Exit. Yeah.
That's the big thing that they also have been trying to extract, is this idea of coalitionism, or coming together, like we said in our thumbnail, right? Is what Black plus Brown plus Asian coalition called, was the Brown Coalition, the Minority Coalition, and the situations are uniquely different. Again, not to marginalize or minimize what Asians are going through right now or what they have experienced. It's just that the media is this white supremacy machine that continues to even bait and switch people, even Asians, into this. And so, there's so much more we could talk about this that we wanted to get into. I think that we had a lot of rich information to jump into, but I just give everyone like a 30-second closer on this main topic, and we're going to jump into our mans and them and shut ourselves down. You got a 30-second drop off, Mr. Stedman, on this one?
Yeah. Ultimately, what we want to try to do, okay, is understand that Black people have paid the price for all these different immigrant groups to come here that were not European. And so when it comes to building a coalition, we've done the work. We've gotten beaten, right? Whatever you want to say about John Lewis, he got his ass whooped for this, right? Martin Luther King was murdered for this. Okay, so to be in a coalition, to be an ally, what we need is for other groups to educate themselves and join us, right? Because doing what we have done, Black people, Black wealth is still trending towards $0. Black homeownership is worse now than it was in the 60s, okay? So what we see is that our work has worked, and it's worked to our disadvantage. So we need the new immigrants to be allies with us and educate yourselves when you come to this country about the system of white dominance and white supremacy that has undergirded this whole country's foundation, and join us.
Right. And
it's
so
not about us giving anything up.
Right. I hear that 120%. Ernest, you got anything? And then we'll go to Adolph.
I concur with what Stedman said.
Just dead on.
Yep.
Adolph, you got anything, sir?
No, I have nothing to add, man. He hit it right on the nail.
All right, coolly. All right, well, like I said, the tragic events that have occurred, hearts go out to the families. We want the best for everyone in this country, but this country wouldn't exist if it weren't for what our ancestors went through. The greatest sin in this country is still undealt with, is still being ignored. And we don't want anyone trying to hitch a wagon onto our fight that has nothing to do with it. We can all go against white supremacy, but reparations and a Black agenda that we need to fix, repair, and secure our community is priority number one, and it should be priority number one for this country if this country is going to ever really deal with what created it. So without further ado, we do have to get into our most lovely segment, our last segment of the night. What do we call that one, y'all? Yo mans and them.
Your mans and them. You are listening to Your Mans and Them. This your mans? Hey, yo, who mans is this? Hey, yo, who mans is this? Hey, yo, who mans is this?
Whose mans is this? I need to know. I really need to know.
Look at here. What's the yo mans of the day, man? What is this about, Ernest?
Who we got? Uncle Joe Biden, right? So yeah, for today's Your Mans and Them, we got, they say, President Biden basically let go 5 of his staffers over marijuana use. I know, Stedman, you know a little bit more about this conversation or this topic. So I'll let you go ahead and just let them know that, the main points of what's went down.
Yeah, so basically, you got to get a security clearance to work in the White House. Mm-hmm. And so one of the questions was, have you used marijuana? Because at the federal level, it's still illegal. That's why this state legal limbo that we're in is good and it's bad, Okay, so the White House informed staffers that they would, if you admitted to using marijuana, they'd be fine. You'll be fine. It would be no problem.
He said it was cool. He said it'd be cool. We just need to know.
If you just admit it, if you just admit it, it's no big deal. We'll work with you. We'll make sure you're taken care of, right? Because it doesn't, it didn't make any distinction between people who lived in legal states and people who lived in states where it wasn't legal. It just asked if you smoked. Okay, the District of Columbia is legal. So after staffers admitted to smoking marijuana or using marijuana in the past, they were given the option to either work from home because they couldn't get the clearance to work in the White House, or resign. And in one case, five staffers were fired. Okay. So, I mean, the hypocrisy is coming at all levels because your vice president was on the radio laughing about being Jamaican and smoking weed, listening to Tupac in college, 10 years before his first album ever came out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The previous president that he worked under.
Yeah, Obama.
Has pictures all over the internet of him smoking weed. He was in something called the Choom Club in high school, which Choom is like a slang term for smoking weed. And so, really, the biggest one for me is his son is a crackhead, right? Everybody has seen these videos and tapes. His son got kicked out of the Navy Reserves for being a crackhead. His son crashed a rental car. They found a crack pipe in the car. His son has, he's a crackhead, right? Just flat out. But when it came for his son's issues late in the election, he talked about how his son just needed a chance and people need chances, and he's proud of his son and all this other bullshit. But when it's other people, just like Joe Biden has done in the past with all the crime bills he wrote, it don't fucking matter. When it was other people, you have a lot of single parent homes because you don't have an active role in your children's life. But when it's his son getting a stripper pregnant in Arkansas, he just needs some help. He's 40-some years old or 50-some years old. Right? Yeah. Why you're a senator, your son got a degree. He was making millions of dollars a year as an energy on the board of energy in a different country. Why do you hold him to a lesser standard than regular people, than descendants of chattel slavery, than people who immigrate from third world countries? Why do you hold him to a lower standard? And so this is what you get when you vote for Joe Biden. He's never shied away from who he was. He was a law and order crime bill writer. He don't like drugs. He don't like black people. He don't like poor people. He don't like helping people who are in need. So this is what you voted for. Everybody who voted for the lesser evil. You voted for the lesser evil. You got evil. You have to own up to this. You have
I like that. You said, listen, you voted for the lesser evil, but it's still evil. Yeah. And so quit playing games. And so just skirting through this real quick. This article here, I was reading it, and what's her face, Jen Psaki, talked about. She said, the bottom line is this: hundreds of people were hired, only 5 who had started working at the White House are no longer employed as a result of this policy. Like those 5 people are just, are they gonna get stimulus checks? Are they getting stimulus checks? So I mean, at the end of the day. First of all, I don't understand how weed somehow compromises somebody's ability to have a security clearance. Yeah. Second of all, I don't understand why you told them any type of shit that they would not get they would not get punitive damage for having had a history of weed use, and then go ahead and let it happen anyway. Like, what are y'all doing?
It's discrimination, but they'll never be able to push that case because of the executive branch. So,
right.
Yeah.
And his son is a crackhead.
Listen, all right. We know he's a crackhead. That's what we gonna know. Tell you what, Stedman said that's one thing. So there's one other thing we gotta touch on, though, right? In terms of garbage in our yo mans and them trash can today. And it's another Biden deal. Mm-hmm. The last thing of the show, we gotta shut this down. But Biden's got a situation at the border.
Yep, it's a little border situation going on, and we called this in our prior shows. We showed y'all videos where there were caravans coming to the country, and Biden said specifically that America belongs to all people who want an opportunity, despite the thousands and millions they have here who are still starving for one, for generations. So, that's what he said. And now, he had a press conference, released a whole bunch of facts, and PolitiFact came and checked them the same way they did Trump. So, let's see
we're sending back the vast majority of families that are coming. They said that's false. They're chilling out here. What else did they say? He said the Biden administration halted all deportations for all illegal aliens, murderers, rapists, terrorists. This was a Tom Cotton comment, right? He's trying to paint Biden as like letting everyone come in and stay, but that wasn't true. They are still deporting people. So PolitiFact said basically Biden said we're sending back the vast majority of families. Border Patrol data shows that in February, the majority of families were not expelled. They were let in and placed in immigration proceedings. So far, February is the only full month the Biden administration has made data available. In January, more than half of the families were expelled, but most of that period was covered by the Trump administration. Biden's claim is inaccurate. We rate it as false. And of course, it's inaccurate because now he's trying to cover for what he really wants to do, which we talked about in the past, right? It's this offset of population, right? It's this whole, running on this idea of liberalizing immigration, right? It's like basically, like you said, this is the land of all, but you can't even deal with who already here. And the last thing, the big thing, like I said in our past show, is this. I'm not here to stop people from being able to immigrate into the U.S. Nobody on this show is trying to just stop people, but bar none, off the jump, he's got a situation at the border because people are not all coming through the port of entry. They're coming through openings in the wall, they're climbing the wall, whatever. They're just coming in any way they can come in. And so when you have all this, you're running around trying to catch all these people, and then you got to put them through proceedings, because the only reason you put them through proceedings is if they claim asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, and then go ahead.
I want to say I was just reading an article earlier today in the Daily Mail. It's a UK newspaper. But 1 in 10 or 1 in 7 children in the detention centers, so unaccompanied children, have the coronavirus. There's a 1,200% increase in the amount of people in the facilities. 1,200%. There's 2,000 people in these facilities. Vast majority of them stand longer than the 72-hour allotment. Okay, so this overcrowded. He didn't have the infrastructure set up to process people humanely. He didn't have a place to actually put people who arrive here. So what he created is a crisis because he wanted to, like you're talking about, liberalize immigration on the one hand, act like this nice guy. I'm not Trump. I'm better than Trump. While simultaneously still trying to kick people out. He's still deporting people. Maybe less, but I don't think it's less. Trump really didn't deport that many people as much as he talked about. So he's still deporting a lot of people. He's still making people go back to Mexico, remain in Mexico, return to Mexico. And so anybody, just go watch that first press conference he had, first president ever to go 2 months without giving a press conference. and you'll hear him talk about it. He's a terrible human being. Again, you voted for this man. Everybody, well, we got to get the lesser of two evils. You know, it's just like that paradigm where you got one body on the train track and you got 10 people on the other track, and you're in the train and you don't have enough time to slow down, and you got to decide whether you're going to kill the one person or kill the 10. All you guys have decided to just kill the one person. And you still have to come to terms with that. You don't get to just wipe your hands of the situation.
Right.
You still killed a person.
Right. So
you didn't kill 10, but you killed somebody. So you have to come to terms with that. When you vote for evil, that's what you do. All the people he's bombing, that's on your head. Don't come looking at me. I didn't vote for that motherfucker.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap this one. We got a lot of heat in there. Thank you for that statement. So we're going to shut this one down, y'all. It's been a good one. Ernest, you got some parting words, 30 seconds or less.
As always, man, thank you guys for tuning in. I want to also say, if you got any comments that you want to get off your chest, make sure you leave those comments on the YouTube channel, and definitely call in next show if you want to revisit any of these topics. We definitely down to discuss and see what your opinions or your views are. And, just before I get off of here, I just want to let you guys know that there's a lot of false equivalencies going on in the media, as we've already reiterated. And until we are ready to truly, break that illusion or dispel that illusion, we will never see true racial progress in America, because as that video just laid out from the Asian American guy, They're all a part of the system. Even the immigrants that's coming up through, South America, it's all a part of this system because it's going to marginalize other groups in the country who have suffered because of actual racial hate crimes and injustice. So that's where I'll leave it.
J Rocky, and then we'll do myself and Stedman to close us out. J Rocky, you got something for the people?
Yeah, man. Thanks for allowing me to come to the show. I apologize, guys. I'm out here,
No worries.
living life, man. But anyways, from the time they brought in, the white immigrants to displace us, bro, to the new immigrants that are displacing us, all of this is at the detriment of Black people, man. At the end of the day, and so as I always end with every broadcast, man, we have no permanent friends, we have no permanent enemies, we only have permanent interests, and I'll leave it at that.
Cool, man. And as I will say as well before I hand it over to Stev, at the end of the day, y'all, we are trying to focus this conversation around constructing a real socio-political machine that's focused on descendants of freedmen in this country and ensuring that we have the parity and get our racial wealth gap corrected. There are many things that are involved in doing this, reparations being that main one, and that entire plan of policy changes and adjustments to social expectations includes things like this, where the media is able to scapegoat and curd around and recruit agents of white supremacy against us, or otherwise use us as tools to further white supremacy, which we've seen and we're going to have to go into in a different episode. But please be safe and continue keeping your ear to the street. Stedman?
Yeah, so one of the things that I always like to talk about is how one can be a tool of white supremacy. You don't have any agency. No tool has agency. So everyone who comes here, who participates in this system of white dominance, you are a tool. You need to understand that you are a tool and fight for your agency. Fighting against a system of white dominance is deliberate. It is dangerous. It is not safe. And they'll even cut your internet off. Okay?
They got
you
mine
just
out.
on a YouTube show with your homies. They'll cut your internet off.
Right.
J Rocky is in a whole nother country, quote unquote third world country. He got a better connection than I do. Okay?
Think about that.
So understand that you have a lot to lose fighting for justice and equality, but it is a fight worth having. Okay? It is a decision worth making because right don't have there's no cost too high for righteousness. There's no cost too high for justice.
Thank you.
I'll leave you with that.
Alrighty, guys. Please be safe. Take care. We will see you in 2 weeks, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you've seen this on Facebook, make sure you go over to our YouTube channel and subscribe and watch out for the next video and watch the prior episodes, y'all. Take care.
Peace.
Peace.